Hey, here at Jack Spirko's 9 Mile Farm, and he's giving a workshop on aquaponics and some of the food production systems. So I thought I'd bring you all along. It's already underway, so check it out.
Has a very moderate impact on blood sugar, and whatever it does elevate blood sugar, actually it's offset by it. So it actually suppresses blood sugar when it's in your stomach, so it kind of equals itself out. So it's very good for diabetics or people who are on keto, low carb. What this is transitioning to, though, this is going to be like, and it may change, but right now, sage is going to be the main thing here. There's going to be lemon balm there. Garden right here. And I've had to get my head around the fact that I'm not a farm, and I don't need to justify the existence of these things with some sort of major trophy hunter mentality of production. We're right now producing more food than my wife and I can eat. We're fixing to go over to the main gardens here in a second, and you'll see peppers and eggplants and stuff hanging on there, overgrown and whatever. Like JR was here earlier this week telling me, he's like, why are you picking us? I'm like, I'm tapped out. I'm done. We got 2 gallons of dehydrated eggplant. I got 4-gallon bags of peppers in the freezer. I've got jars of peppers. Like I'm worn out, and we're not even in the main production of that yet. But before I go over there, without getting into that, we have a whole workshop coming on that part of it. Are there any questions about this spot? If you know the answer to this question, I'm going to walk over there and punch you. Go ahead. All right.
So this plant here, was this the same one that was the ground?
No, that's it. That's ground up. Okay, that's a good question. Yes.
So how's the water level setting this? You said they're elevated. So how do you get it to flow?
So this is a tank. This right here's a tank. There's a bulkhead in the bottom.
Okay.
There's a pipe that stands up. If you look down that big 4-inch pipe, you'll see it. And the water just overflows. That sets the level. And I could change that level by putting a shorter or longer pipe in there. Okay. The other thing I can do is in the spring when I feel like it needs to be a little more hydrated. This is not what I would use, but pretend this is a straight. That's an 1.25-inch pipe, I think. Coupler. I can just gently set the coupler on the top of it. It'll raise it by about 1 inch and bring that water up. Now, the one thing you do have to be careful with is plants will put roots into there and plug that, and then it will start to overflow out the back. So you got to keep an eye on it. What I do is in the summer, once a week, I just come out here, make sure there's not a black widow in there. Stick my hand down in there and do this. Because if you don't, what will happen is you'll end up with that going down the pipe, and eventually it will plug. And what you do then is you know the little grabber tool you use for shit you drop behind your toolbox or whatever? Stick that in there and grab it and pull it out, and it'll look like a formed plug. And I pulled one out last year with about that. And I had to get about that plug because I got lazy and didn't do this.
How deep into the dirt does the water level go? All the way up to the dirt level?
These are about 20 inches deep, and the water level is set at about 8.
You had rock.
So I got about, there's no rock here. This is a tank.
You don't have rock in the bottom?
Oh, I do, yes. Yeah. So the rock layer is about 8 inches, and that's when the water goes up. The other thing with these, it's not just rock. I took a pipe like this cheap, thin-walled drainage pipe, put it on the chop saw, and so jigged it so I could just boom, 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 boom. The whole bottom is one pipe cut up in sections. It creates a hollow spot, and it gets good flow through with water. I have stopped building anything using rock without some scrap pipe in it because that helps keep that flow going. And I don't, like, if it happens here, well, you can just rip it out. If it happens here, it's a problem. So we learned that from other places, and these have been set for 3 years now, and I've never had a bottom clog yet. Let's move on. Y'all want to help sometime later today? All this crap needs to go over to the burn pit. If you look here and here, you see these unhappy looking stumps. Those are mulberries. They're dwarf pepperberry mulberries, and they started to get some unhappy fungal funk going on right there. So this is a coppice. And you can use a coppice for timber production or firewood production, but you can also do coppicing to a tree that accepts it, and mulberry doesn't care. That will now go like crazy. You kind of reboot it. If you're having some disease problems, I've seen in like avocado ranch, they'll actually take the damn tree all the way to the bottom, and when it grows back, it'll grow back without disease pressure. There's some other things I'll be doing to kind of encourage these to do well. But what's also going to happen is you're going to get a million green shoots out of this now. Ducks like this. So they like it when it's young and tender. Behind me is the first aquatic system that I put on the property. I did this because since I was a little boy, I wanted fun on my property. I couldn't really do it here. I tried down there. If anybody wants to see what a $6,000 hole that doesn't hold water looks like, you can walk down in that corner. It will require no further explanation than about the story. You will go look at it and you'll say, that sucks. And trust me, it sucks more for me than you. It was my $6,000 that made that hole. This was my solution to have fish on my property. I love fish. As you'll see, there's a lot more fish now. These are 3 galvanized stock tanks. All the people on the forums that are smarter than me said it would kill my fish and they would die. They've been here 8 years and my fish are not dead. So I'm not expecting my fish to die anytime soon. It is not my preferred material for doing this, but it's inexpensive and I wanted to do it when I got these 3 tanks have water delivered to them from a pump down in that tank right there. There's a valve in each one. This one's off. That's not good. See, this is where people aren't supposed to touch valves. And these valves control the speed, create agitation. These 3 tanks are plumbed together with 2-inch return lines. No person who ever put in an aquatic system said, I wish my return lines were smaller. The only reason they're not 3-inch return lines, they're not burying a 3-inch piece of pipe here. If I could have, I would have put 3-inch returns on. They do clog a little bit. I'm about to show you how we handle that. These need to kind of be like, this time of year, about twice a week, I'll come out here, open them, clean them out, and set them back the way I want them. You are not permitted to do this operation at all, ever, while you're here as a guest. In the summer, there's times when that needs to be done almost daily, at least once a day, or they start to clog, and then these tanks don't get water. There's no fish in these tanks. There are minnows, but they're little fish, but no eating fish. This is all minnows and shrimp. The shrimp I have growing in this tank are neocardinia cherry shrimps. Just because they're called cherry doesn't mean they're red. That's the most popular one, so that's become a name for them. They are shrimp that people keep in aquariums inside houses that are supposed to die when it freezes. If you come look in these tanks, it might be kind of hard to see them right now. Don't try it now when there's so many people come by and look in. You can probably see some. In the winter, when they're supposed to die, is when their population explodes. Nick Ferguson and I figured this tank last year in January, it looked like about 80,000 of them, and that is not, like you just say, a big number. Like, that was our best guess, that there were 80,000 of these little shrimps in there. So we grow the minnows and the shrimps in here. That way there's no fish to eat them. So when I want to feed my fish in these other systems, I'll take a dip net like you use in an aquarium. I'll set it in there, and I'll throw an algae wafer in it. And then they all go in there. And I just take that net out over there, and all my small panfish and stuff like that are now fed. With the minnows, I just throw a couple pellets in the top. They all go crazy and dip. And the minnows and the shrimp are in separate cycles. They're shrimp year-round, but they have their actually lowest population in the summer, highest in the winter. The mosquito fish, which is the main minnow I use, the ambrosia, those peak in the spring, and about August, they just almost like disappear. There's a few here and there. And I don't like this. There's a few females that make it through the winter, and then they're a live bearer. They're basically a North American guppy, but they don't crossbreed with the real, like the fish guppies, and they explode. So I've got minnows going crazy here, and I can use those to stock my larger pond, feed my fish. As much as you're going to see with fish here, I go through about 100 pounds of feed a year. That's it. 2 bags, so like a heavy year, maybe 3 bags, 150 pounds a year of feed. And that's cheap feed. I feed them I don't have special organic fish feed. And this is the main way they're fed, and we'll get to some other stuff. I do have some issues with this system, with these return lines, especially this last leg of this return line clogging up. And we definitely want to video this because you're going to get to see something gross, and the next group is only going to get to see water come out. This is like the problem with fish going for a ride is maybe you don't want them to. The other problem is they tend to stick and burn, and then the fish becomes a clog, and that's the problem. We have to eject the fish away. We're about to eject the clog. But this, in the summer, at least once a day, I'm out here and I just do that. And that water return line right there, just when I took that off, see how that's going now? Because this will impact it. About once a year, I take this and throw it in a 5-gallon bucket full of chlorine bleach, and let it dry out in the sun and completely clean it out. This is the maintenance that I do about once every 2 months. I don't know how disgusting it'll look because it was done about a month ago, and this is the easy time of year. Summer's when we get the most icky get. 2-inch plug goes in a 2-inch pipe, female adapter. When I'm done with this, I take this off and I just leave it on the ground here. There's no other place on the property I need it. That way I can always find it. I'm not good at finding stuff. Now, what we're going to do, this is going to be the accident. See, as soon as I plug that up, this pops. It's all full of water now. I don't want this going back into the system. That rock there, so I don't make too much of a mud hole. No, you all look down there. Up here, it's not big water.
Okay.
That's what happens to me when I listen to a Biden speech. Trump's the other end.
Let it start to run water. Look down there. As soon as the water comes out of it, just pull back up. Yep, stick it in there. Stick it back in. First one more time, that's all I do. Probably run pretty clean this time. Clean it out. Take it out. Put the redneck engineering apparatus back in.
Nice.
That has saved me so much grief. Now, huh? Yeah, oh, yeah.
Another pond.
We might have to add some water now. You actually hold the level. It's that high. It doesn't matter where that one. That right there, that's the level here. That one right there, that's the level there. Does everybody understand how? You're not. That was like, but pretty much the hole is wherever the hole is. The hole could be 100 miles away. It's gonna set. You put a hole inside of the tank, right here. Then the water level is going to come right there and come out that hole. When you move the hole with a pipe, the hole isn't where it goes in. That's not where the hole is. The hole is there. And once you get it dialed in, it's pretty stable. This is the first one I built, therefore it is the least beautiful and is the least functional. And every time you add a layer, you add a lot of stability, but you add another point of failure, another place things can clog and overflow and what have you. But this system's pretty cool, and you can look in there and think there's not many fish in there. You can see Mr. Coy's head sticking out of that thing right there. There's at least 10 catfish in there that are this big. And it's probably springtime. We'll kind of start tacoing some of them and making some of them and stuff. And I keep catfish in anything that has breeding goldfish in it. Otherwise, you have 100,000. There's about 10 of them in there too. And there's one that I thought died, and I thought I lost them all years ago. Years ago. I've not seen them come all the way out, but his head is that big. He comes out from underneath that vegetation and he goes back here. He's probably ready to stay. So this system here, it just was for my enjoyment, and I've learned a lot by working with it. It's something you can build on your property. It's probably not what I would build unless you got a compelling reason. The layout like this. There's times I think about ripping all this out, put another one. I call them dogs. Big dogs. I want to. And I've got nice benches set up for y'all. I don't know if there's enough bench for everybody, but on those. This took some courage to build. So I built a little one first. I wasn't sure when I stuck 4,500 gallons of water in here if these things would hold. They've done beautifully. If you want a pond in a backyard and you can't or just are reluctant to, digging a hole, putting it in the ground, this is what I would do. This has turned into my morning meditation spot. I've never had a bad morning out here. This is the day I put it in. There's about 50 channel cats in here, and I have no problem with capacity on that. There's no elaborate filtration system in this at all. Just you can look in on the corners and take your time. You're all here all day, but there's stacks that I call air stacks. As far as I know, I'm the only person that's ever built them. It was one of those things that came to me in my head one night, and it's basically a bucket full of concrete with a piece of 4-inch pipe coming out and a bunch of slits cut in that pipe. These valves cause the water to be a little bit higher pressure, just like when you take a garden hose, stick your thumb over it. That drives that water down into that pipe, pushes air down into the system, but then it comes out through, instead of coming straight back up, it comes out through the slits in the pipes. And it makes it spend more time in the water. You can have a lot of bubbles going, yeah, just like that. Just like that, only there ain't as many of them there. And so you're pushing water out of these slits, and it's spending time in the air column. You can have bubbles in water, but the longer it's there, the more the O2 dissolves into the water. That's really, for the first year and a half, all that was in here. And when I built it, several people were here when we built it, they're like, they couldn't believe that's all I was going to do. There's no solid separator, nothing like that. It's worked beautifully. The other thing it does is, since that water's going in here, floating vegetation is possible. If you have floating vegetation in a pond like this and you have a fountain or something, it will beat the shit out of it and destroy it. And you will never be able to maintain, like, in here I have this duckweed. I did learn a very hard lesson this year. I've been a very big fan of a totally illegal, noxious, invasive weed called water lettuce. It does amazing things. It's a big part of why these gardens have done so well in their first year. However, it has these long, beautiful roots. The fish love to get up in there and hide. This year, things balanced so well that the nutrient levels in the pond plummeted. And that lettuce started to turn yellow. It dropped its roots. Didn't hit this pond that hard. It hurt me in the smaller pond. I lost 3 dozen at least really nice, like green sunfish and other sunfish like that. Those root particles got in their gills, and once it was in there, it was not coming out. And it took them weeks to die, even after the water quality, like all of it was out, the water quality was fine, I flushed it through, and they would just, it looked almost like a cancer or a disease where their gills would swell and they would slowly die. And when they would get slow moving enough that I could net them out, I would net them out and euthanize them, because I knew I just lost my last fish from that event 3 days ago in this pond, because I thought maybe I can get them out of that pond and into this pond, and it would help since this pond was a lot healthier. None of the fish in here died, but the ones I brought over still couldn't make it. It was a physical injury at that point they couldn't recover from. So I know a lot of y'all have heard me say use water lettuce. I'm not saying not to use it. I'm saying have a plan to get rid of it if it shows any sign that it's beginning to not have enough nutrients, because it is an amazing plant and it does a lot of good. I like coverage on my ponds in the summer. It keeps algae down, it keeps temperature down. It's just so much better. My plan this year is to take those big black buckets we make the hydroponic systems out of and plant them with water lilies. Now, the water lilies are done for the year, but there's like a dwarf lily there and a dwarf lily there. They're on these benches. This has benches that we built it for y'all that weren't here when we put it in. Basically, they're cinder blocks in a tower, and then they're just cheap 36-inch floor tiles that look like wood floor tiles going across, and that way you have all this cover for your fish. And we put the towers of the cinder block down, so like you have 2 of them sitting so that the columns go this way, and the next one goes another way, and the next one goes another way, and the one next to it, they're reversed. Because these fish are angry fish. They really are. Bluegills, perch, great fish to keep, but they like to fight with each other, like to be territorial. So you have tons of these little hidey holes, and they can all be angry fish and not see each other. And that creates a lot of edge, and that means I can have a higher population of fish in here than would be normal, accepted in a tank of this size. We do eat fish out of here. They're delicious. For some reason, the tail caps get very black. Maybe this evening I'll come out here and throw up. People ask how do you get them out. There's a rod there, piece of hot dog, and a hook. That's how we get them out. Or if we catch a goldfish, a baby goldfish, cut it in half, throw it on the bottom.
Finish the story about the tank. Take the black tank.
What black tanks?
We're gonna submerge.
Oh yeah. So the buckets. What I'm going to do is take the buckets, put some rock in the bottom so they stay down, put some holes in them, fill them up with dirt about that deep, plant the tubers for the lily pads into them, put a string on them with a little bobber, and that way you can pull them up to service them. Because what happens with lily pads, they get really aggressive growing at the roots, and they'll eventually rupture that bucket, and they'll take over the whole bottom. So by having that bucket, I'll be able to pull them up. I'll also be able to propagate them, and if I ever wanted to, sell them because they're actually expensive. They're a beautiful plant, but I want to use lily pads as one of my main covers, so I'm not going to have that issue that I have with the water lettuce. I just came up with that about a month ago. I wanted to put some ebb and flow in the system. That's a time-based ebb and flow. There's 2 bulkheads, and you can look down in there later. One's all the way to the bottom, and if you don't understand this, get with me in the garage. I have a student-sized one in there that we can go through. But basically, that timer kicks on for 15 minutes. Comes in through the bottom, fills that up to the level I want it at. An overflow pipe controls, that's the water coming out right there underneath it. This right here is venting the extra pressure. And when that pump kicks off, that water falls back through that valve right there real slowly, drops back down. Every 15 minutes it fills, every 45 minutes it stays drained. And unlike anybody here ever do aquaponics, try to do a bell siphon? No bell siphon, people? Never make one. Oh, you did. You get pissed off at it? Yeah, I know, I did. Well, they piss you off, don't they? Like, you come out and it's stuck at the top or stuck at the bottom or gets clogged, it doesn't work. This can't fail. Except at the timers will wear out after a few years, but I mean, they're an $8 timer, and it's on and off. It'll shut off while we're here, and you guys will see it. That'll stop going fast, and it'll slowly trickle back out. You can do it, let it drain through the pump. It just takes a lot longer. If you put a valve to vent your pressure, because you don't need that much pressure to fill that thing up, not only do you get that extra agitation right there, that's good for the fish. You get a faster cycle when the timer goes off.
That's on
It's on its own little pump. It's on a little Allied Aqua, like 600 watt pump or 600 gallon per hour pump. That's all that it needs. I want to put one more in. These guys will probably relocate. This is taro. This is blue Hawaiian taro, and it's like margarita green, which I'm sure some yesterday they figured out to sell for more money. But that's like an emergency store of carbohydrates. You can actually eat those, but it's a lot of work. Have you ever heard of poi? That's what they make poi out of. I have because they're pretty, and you can pull tubers off them every year and sell them to yuppies. This one in particular, this is actually really expensive. Like one tuber for this is like $12. And when you see it in its glory in the summer, you'll just see why. It's just beautiful. This is my fish kindergarten. I made a mistake with this right here. So this hose kind of ruptured, came apart, blew up. In fact, there's a video I did where I'm out here by the pond talking, and I say it's raining at the end. It looked like it was going to rain. It wasn't raining. That blew right at the end of that video and shot water up over my head onto my camera. So I just have it off. So if I need to top this up right now, this is what I do. I'm going to replumb this so that intelligently enough, the hose is out here, so it's not fitting, it's not getting wet. And these are made to go on a stock tank, so it's perfect. So with that on, you never have to worry about the level here. Get everything you can as far as water gardens on a flow valve. It will make your life better. How am I on time? What time is it?
10:27.
Oh, good. Okay. Again, this is a fish kindergarten. It's just a 100-gallon Rubbermaid. We have the same kind of towers underneath. It's just not built as high, and it's sitting on them. It is full of lava rock at the bottom, and it's got 1/4-inch holes drilled, like shitloads of them. I don't care. Take a drill, and we just had folks drill the shit out of it. We set it in there, and that way when I bring fish in, so bluegills, perch, call them what you want to, green sunfish, pumpkin seeds, they're like these peaceful little sunfish your kids catch, right? No, they're mean bastards. And if you put in like goldfish, little goldfish, when they're big like this, they're armor plated. When they're little, they'll be like scales going everywhere. Also, I have fish breeding in here now. My green sunfish bred this year. I had hundreds of little ones. I don't know how many didn't get eaten by a catfish, but I want some of them to not get eaten by a catfish. They figured out really quick they could fit through that little hole. And you come out here at night in the summer and shine it in here, there'd be a couple hundred of them in here. And it seemed like they went out during the day because I couldn't find them in there during the day, and they would come back at night. They had figured out that they had this place to hide. And I'm actually thinking about maybe pulling that out. It looks like it'd be impossible, but it's just full of holes. Every inch you raise it, it gets lighter. It'll come right out. And putting some bigger holes in it so that they don't like get caught, right? There are some catfish in here that are 16, 18 inches. There's about 4 or 5 that are about 26. I'll try. We'll feed them right now. Hey, grab a handful of that and just throw it out in the middle. See the water? Okay, right now that's draining back through. That's cycling right now. So the water's gonna go all the way back down to the bottom there. If you watch, you might see a whisper or two come up. It's early. They don't usually eat in the morning, but sometimes they will for you. Yeah, throw another handful. I'd rather you go light than heavy. In the winter, when I observe that I feed them and they do not eat, I stop feeding them. Rotting food is bad for fish and bad for the ecosystem. There will be a period through the winter. They'll go about 2-3 months where I won't feed them at all. And when it starts to warm up, I'll come out and just throw like his first handful. And if they eat, I'll start feeding again. If they don't, I just wait. I do not test my water. I observe my fish. If it's a time when I know my fish should eat and they don't eat, I know something's wrong. The reason I don't test the water, no matter what your test says, if it's bad, what you're going to do is a water change. So why am I going to test it to tell me to do a water change if my fish already said, please change the water so I don't die? To do a water change here, all I do, if this is here and working, is take something and prop that down so it's open and walk away and set a timer so I don't forget, because I tend to forget shit. And it fills up and it overflows out this overflow. And if I run 2,000 gallons through it, I've changed 2,000 gallons of water. I don't siphon it out. I don't pump it out. I just do that. Really, really simple, really, really easy. Now, there is a bass in here. Bill the bass. I just saw him. That's the cool thing about the big white koi. You can see fish you wouldn't see because he eclipses them, or they eclipse him, right? I put Bill and Bob the bass in here. I illegally removed them from a park pond because they were about that big, so they're not quite legal to keep. But I didn't keep them. I let them go in another pond. And I had to do a flush, and I did a flush. And I'm just going to say that Bill's a smarter bass. He stayed in the pond. Bob rode over the overflow, laid in the puddle here for a while until the timer went off and the hose shut off. And then he dried up and he turned into bass jerky. And then the ducks ate him. So my message on that is I've actually found out this year that it's very common for largemouth bass to go over overflows. Kid met me at this park. It was really cool. 14-year-old kid, knew the survival podcast. Was freaked out because he's talking to Jack Spirko. And I was talking about, I said, there's a little bass in here, but it doesn't seem like many. He goes, well, see that overflow? So when it rained, it was running over the overflow. They all went to creek. I rode my bike down there about 2 weeks later, and they all got stuck in a hole. And when the water stopped flowing, they all died. So Park Karen came and told me it was wrong of me to use a net in that pond because they were trying to keep their population up. They have no idea what.
Park Karen.
Park Karen. She's an official Park Karen.
Was she wearing a mask?
No, we don't wear masks at parks in Texas. Well, not in this part of Texas, John.
Yeah, the good part.
Anyway, keeping it brief because I will answer questions at lunchtime in depth on this. I might even come out here to eat my lunch out here. Is there any questions about this? Because I want to get y'all cover cropping here in a minute.
Was it hot when we put this together?
It was really hot. Him and I almost died, man. We were ready to pass out. We put the liner in, and I wanted to be really careful because it's a thick, heavy liner. But if you drop a cinder block on it, it's going to make a hole. And it's going to leak, and I'm going to be sad. So we got in there, and I'm glad you asked that. I took big 16 by 16 piles, and everywhere the cinder block is sitting, it's actually sitting on tile. So I laid down, and I just bought the cheapest stuff I get. I'm like, I need the cheapest 16-inch tile you got and the cheapest 36-inch, wood-looking tile. Well, what are you doing? It doesn't matter, right? And he's like, but we have different. No, listen. With a fire sale, whatever you got is the cheapest. And finally, I'm like, okay, I'm going to put them in the bottom of a fish pond. Right this way. I didn't mind that. I expected a lot more questions after that. He gave up. So I don't like long conversations with people at Lowe's. I'm like Ron Swanson. Anybody see the Ron Swanson episode? He's at like Home Depot or Lowe's. He's pushing his cart, and the guy says, "May I help you, sir?" And he's like, "I know more than you." And Jake, you had a question? Against my better judgment, I'm going to let you ask it.
So you had a problem with the water.
Linus.
Okay. Did you do the same thing with the waterways that you're going to do with the woods and maybe protect the fish?
No, because they're a floating plant. And once they hit summer, you can put 5 pieces of it in here, and in 2 weeks, it will be 75% coverage. It will go that fast. They make little buds. All you can do is take it out. I'm going to keep using it because I love it as a mulching plant. I'm going to use it in that system. I've never had a problem in that system, and it's small. So as soon as I see leaf yellowing, it would take me the pitchfork, 5 minutes, and I'm done. This took some time to get it all out here. And what I was doing with it all summer long is I'd come out here with a pitchfork about once every 2 weeks and it picks up a shitload. It just worked. It's the perfect tool for it. And I would just pick it up, dump it in the garden, pick it up, and it was going really good. And again, this one didn't get bad, but when I identified the problem there, I got it out. So I'll use it. What I'm probably going to use is a floating vegetation in this pond. Another innocuous invasive weed that you're not supposed to use, water hyacinth, because it doesn't get that huge long root system and it doesn't have that problem. It can survive with much lower. But whatever you use, whatever you take out, you can compost it if you want to. But I say if you're going to build a water system, put it next to a garden and take it out of the garden or out of the water. And what's beautiful about this is I can tell my grandson when this is all heavy coverage in the summer, I want you to take these out and put them in there. He can't do it long. He can try gas and not get enough of it done, but he can't mess it up. So build your systems to work, with your health. Like if you've got livestock, you think about how you build your paddocks to shift it around. If you have children, build your systems to their level of capability. Because you can't tell grandpa you can't do this. Like you can't, I don't know how. You just learn. Get on it. I do want to put in a cover crop. I thought we have a lot of hands here, and I get lots of questions about cover crops. I'm going to give y'all these 2 beds to do. And here's what we're going to be putting in. Daikon radish. Okay. So normally I just broadcast stuff. Since we got all these little hands here, what you do is pull the mulch back kind of in your area. Pick about just a lot of y'all. So pick like about a 1 foot square area to work with. Put a bunch of them in, not thrown down, but a whole. Drop a couple in each hole. Same thing with purple top turnip, and same thing with that's more daikon. Same thing with the peas. There's some new stuff I'm trying this year. This is called Blaze Winter Pea. All this is from Hancock seed. Tell it's the Hancock seed because of how it is. Only a few people know that joke, but you can tell because it says Hancock on it. This is something that came out new this year. This is supposed to be like the most winter hardy cover crop pea you can get. It's called Blaze. You'll see. But this nitrogen, right? That's why this is going in. Right? This purple top turnip, greens for us to eat through the winter, and I don't eat turnips. Who eats turnips? A couple people eat turnips. You can eat the turnips. I let the worms eat the turnips. They rot in the ground, and there's been a lot of work done out of Tennessee, actually. Okay, a farmer up there increasing yields just by sowing winter turnip and leaving it and planting into it, and huge reduction in irrigation by that organic matter. So you can either till organic matter in, or you can grow it in and let it die. Exact same thing, daikon. Plant system, different things going on in place. So I got long, skinny, big fat round. Right? Now I'm long and skinny. I used to be big fat round. So we're gonna plant both of those. And last thing, barley. Now what we might want to do is get some cups and stuff. I don't know if you don't have coffee in them. It's up to y'all how you want to do it. I'll be here to answer any questions while you're doing it. But let's not spill it in the pond. And the barley, after you plant a little bit of these 3, get a handful of barley, sprinkle around, push pull back. Anybody not clear how to do that or what to do with that?
I do have a question.
Yes.
You want like
Why don't I do
You
one?
want somebody over here to do daikon.
No.
No, it's all.
Everybody do a little bit of everything. Why don't I do one? Somebody can be my assistant and open bags. Take a spot. Have a buddy next to you. One of you has to go first. And also observe all the things that people think are bad in their garden. Look at the roly polies. People tell me roly polies are bad. No, roly polies ain't bad. In fact, we could even have people team up and hand seed each other. I mean, however y'all want to do it. You can't do it wrong. I'm not going to be upset. It's not my water tank. So, like, poke some holes. Watch for ants. Like, when I see soil like that, I'm always worried about ants, but there ain't none in this one. Well, we got it. Daikon.
Throw your plastic trash back in the
No.
pond.
Okay, turn up. Is that turn up? That's way more than you need. That's all right. All right. Barley. Barley, we're going to do like Sepulcher. Peas. Oh, you ain't got nothing there. Arrow. Go. Now we know that spot's done. Move on. Go. Go away. You know, those people like 2 weeks. America. The 35s. They're just noise now. All right. Now, be careful when you're doing the backside of these ones. You don't cut yourself on the. That's a mistake. I should always point out mistakes. If I had to do again, I would have not cut these off, and I would have put them higher up and left this gap like here where I cut these off. Be real careful on this one. I tried using bolt cutters because a friend told me that was a good idea. It is not a good idea. It leaves a really jagged edge. What actually works is a bimetal reciprocating saw blade because it's very clean. But anybody that's cut like branches and stuff with a reciprocating saw knows when the branch moves, it doesn't cut worth a damn. So when I do this, once the beans are done for the year, I'm gonna have a helper just kind of push a 2x4 up against it right there so it's solid. And I'm gonna take the bottom layer off because this is a pain. This is easy. This is a pain in the ass. You gotta reach it. So
I would suggest
an
angle grinder.
Yeah,
you could get like a sanding.
That's 2 steps.
I mean,
I'm telling you, I got one, and I thought about it.
In particular, the ones that are already cut.
Yeah. That's what I'll do. But when I tried the steps off, it just was beautiful until I got to here, and it did this. Right. So my grandson called the 2x4. It's a good plan. And I'll talk about other things while we're doing it. Yeah, don't team up, and I'll explain it. I feel like we just. I mean, okay, yeah. We'll talk about that as we plan. So these beans are Chinese red noodles, and they're my favorite beans. They don't get a lot of the bean diseases we get in the summer here.
You guys want to
beans grow great in spring and fall. In the summer, when it gets really hot and dry, there's some kind of weird bean fungus that hits the leaves and it knocks them down. This is not that. This is frost damage. We got a light frost here. It knocked the crap out of the sweet potato. It didn't touch the peppers or do anything. I did want to talk about that too. Some of the stuff is growing here. This is Texas wild cherry tomato. This is the most indestructible plant I've ever seen for a tomato. It did get blight and all this summer, and when my tomatoes get blight, I just get rid of them. I just cut them off. It grew back from being completely cut off at the ground. Completely, I mean, to the ground, grew back. And it's got tomatoes on it. Yeah, I got the volunteer tomato out here. This squash, you need to be growing this squash. Yeah. This is called Trombocino. Sharpen this.
You have any seeds?
Huh?
You have any seeds for the Trombocino?
A little bit. So, the beauty of this, everything from my hand up this way is pure meat. There's no seeds in this. That's salt. It's pumpkin, butternut squash, and it's a lot easier to peel. A regular potato peeler will take that skin right off of it. If you eat them when they're young, like see those young ones right here, I don't think they're pollinated, so it's not going to set. But when they're like that, you let them get about twice that size. They taste just like zucchini. You got zucchini and winter in one plant. Yeah, there's another. That one looks like it's set. It looks like it pollinated. Seen it grew in a big round circle. The one that's on the porch was hanging here, and I had to cut it because the reason to grow this, who hates squash vine borer? I do. Right? Look at this. Look at this. They're absolutely, they are in it everywhere. And it doesn't care. It just keeps like new vines keep growing out of it. It's still setting fruit. This would be my recommendation if you want a carbohydrate crop for calories that you can store. Trombone zucchini, and you'll find it. Okay, that's why. But this has been another one there. How about make good noodles? They make great noodles, mainly when they're still green. Okay. They're not as good when they're like a butternut when they're like that. But
why do you go with Hancock seeds?
Till summer, but they will get to a point where they look good, but they get pithy. So I would say by about March, if you haven't used it in Texas, because I don't know how long you're storing them elsewhere, about 3 months into your storing, if you haven't used it yet, cut them up, freeze them. They freeze just fine. And with us being low carb, we use that's 1 meal, that's 2 meals, that's 3 meals, that's 4 meals, that's 5 meals, that's 6 meals, that's 7, and that's seeds. I don't even bother with this.
It's a lot of food.
They make really great. If you like butternut squash soup, these are incredible for that because it's not like a butternut where you're digging and scraping. And all you do is peel it, cut it up in chunks, throw some oil on it, throw it in the oven, roast it, and then do your soup the way you do with any squash soup. Okay, they're doing those 2 minutes. They were smart. Now y'all are leaving the other students to have to deal with the trellises. Y'all are smart.
All right, folks, we're here at 9 Mile Farm, Jack Spirko's farm. Jack Spirko's the host of the Survival Podcast, and he's got a lot of cool stuff going on out here. So might do a couple more videos. This is his annual workshop. Maybe he does a couple. It's my first time to participate, and super stoked to be here. Lots of really cool people living free, growing their own food, living the good life.
Yeah, we've got, these are Cuban L's right here. And we're going to pick some peppers when Dorothy sends somebody out. Anything here that's not a jalapeno or really dark green is not hot, even if it looks like a chili pepper. This is a Cuban L pepper. This is sweet.
You didn't wash it, didn't wash it?
Yeah. I'm tapped out on eggplant. If you happen to want an eggplant for some reason, feel free to take them. These are delicious. Well, we're going to pick the peppers. We're going to use the jalapenos for chili day, and we're going to use the sweet pepper for salad bar day.
Hey, Jack, why do you go with Hancock seeds?
Because they were cheap.
Okay.
When I buy seed for this, I buy from small producers to keep them in business. When I buy cover crop, I buy from Hearn or Hancock or somebody like that because I want to support a small seed producer, but I'm not paying what they need to get a pound of seed. A pound of seed is a lot of seeds. And I'm not growing those really to eat. I'm growing those to improve my soil. And that's really, really important. The last thing I guess I didn't say when I talked about the barley, that barley is food for ducks. When that barley comes up in the spring and it gets those heads on it, I'll take one of those beautiful glittering bizarre things that you may get a chance to win on the barter blanket, and I'll take the tops off of it. I'll throw them in a regular old paper bag so it don't get wet and dry, let them dry out, and then I'll just throw a couple handfuls to the ducks until they're gone. The rest of it, I'll go down the bottom and cut it and drop it right in the bed as mulch. And we're feeding the worms through the winter with the roots, and we're feeding all the soil organisms. Y'all see all kinds of critters in there when you were planting? Oh, yeah. Did we plant this? Is that what we did? Is there any more planting needs to happen? Yeah. Y'all got to leave something. Hey, don't plant that one. If y'all planted these two, don't plant that one. The next students need something to do.
No, we planned
If you want to plan it, go ahead. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Any other questions on this?
basic, what was your basic cost investment on this when you first started? Is there anything you do differently to bring that down in the beginning?
I would not be able to bring it down. This was the second one of these I built. There's really not anything wasted in it. About $3,000.
And what's the screws? So I got a question.
Has more money in the screws than the lumber.
Wow.
What about your inner liner?
The liner this size is like $200. Not much. Pump's about $100. Oh, that's more. It's that pump right there. Look at the bottom of it. That was recently pulled out of another system. See that? That is nasty. It will clog up. About once a month, I pull all my pumps out, take a high pressure nozzle, and spray them out. The bottom of those is designed to unscrew. Two giant men want to get on that and try to unscrew that. That'd be great. Don't break it. That pump works. I recommend you standardize. If you have lots of pumps, standardize on 1 or 2 pumps. Always, always, always. On your shelf somewhere. Have one of each pump that you use. If that pump shuts off, it's nice that Amazon can get one to you in 48 hours, but that fish needs it in about 4. So have a spare pump. There you go. You got it. That's all you got to do. Now it should pop off. All right. Hold it up to the bottom. Hold the main pump up. That bottom right there, you spray that out really good. Go to the top side where the water comes out and flush it through. And then clean out the piece that they took off. If your pump comes with a little foam thingy inside there, throw that the fuck away. If you are running it in a fish aquarium in your house and all, that is one thing. It will clog up in 3 days. Those are about $140. And that's my favorite big pump. That's a Danner 3,000 gallon per hour pump. 2,000 gallon per hour pump is what's running in here. They look the same. They have the same form factor. I don't need 3,000 gallons pumping through here to go for a hole. Snails. Snails will go in that thing and clog the shit out of it. The little pond snails. If you have snails in there, you really need to make sure that you're cleaning probably in the summer. Every 2.5, 3 weeks, you're servicing your pumps. I don't use hoses on my pumps. I use straight PVC. I've had to get creative. That particular pump, if you hold it up, the barb that comes with it right there, a 1.5 inch coupler sticks onto it like it was made for it. It wasn't, but it does. No, it just shoves right on there. So you take a 1.5 and a reducer to 1 inch, and you're good. Some pumps, like little Allied Aquas, the 400, 600, 800, they'll take a 1/2 inch male slip and thread adapter, goes right in them, screws right in. Put a 1/2 inch pipe in it, good to go. The 1,100 gallon Allied Aqua uses a 5/8 fitting. They don't make that in PVC. You're screwed. So what I did is I took one of the barbs that goes in there that's designed for a hose to go onto. It's a JB water well, and JB water well did a 1/2 inch coupler to it. Works just fine. JB water well, have it around. Oh, these beans are Scarlet Runners. They did okay, but they got a lot of that funk on them. These beans over here, they're called pole beans. I don't know what kind. They were for sale at Tractor Supply. It said pole beans. So I bought them and threw them in there. Best beans I've ever grown as far as getting through the heat of the summer and all. That's why there's so many of them hanging on there like that. I'm letting them go to seed.
What's the squash variety again?
Trumbushino. I've got some Seminole pumpkin growing here. If you look at the ones that on the ground on Mossville, they are also Cucuberta moschetta, which is what the Trumbushino is. This is butternut. They are all resistant to vine borers, but I tried all 3 of them this year, and definitely the Trumbushino was the one that was the most badass. And you get 2 squashes out. You get a summer and winter. And that plant was planted in April. We've eaten probably 50 squash off these right here through the summer, and I've got enough of those big orange ones in there that Dorothy's going, do we need more? Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Yep. Y'all want to pick some peppers?
Yeah.
Hell yeah. All bees are over there.
All right, there you have it. 9 Mile Farm, the survivalpodcast.com. I think that's the URL. But Jack's done like, I don't know, over 2,200 podcasts with all sorts of great info on survival, homesteading, permaculture, food production systems. And he's gotten into agorism for the past many months, so that's great too. But yeah, subscribe to the podcast at livefreenow.show. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're watching on YouTube. Definitely subscribe to the podcast if you're on Facebook or YouTube exclusively. But this is John Bush signing out. My battery's about to die. I'm going to charge. Maybe we'll do some more footage from the workshop here for the next few days. Peace and freedom. I'm out. Thanks.